One book, one extraordinary life. 48 chapters of saints, science, and the search for God.
I'm Kai,
And I'm Maya.
and this is our take on Autobiography of a Yogi, chapter by chapter. Sri Yukteswar stops mid-sentence. He's in the Panthi boarding house, in the room where Yogananda lives, this old brick mansion sitting right on the Ganges. And he's looking around like he's seeing something layered into the walls themselves, something in the history of the place.
He turns to Yogananda and says, "Years ago, right in this very room you now occupy, a Mohammedan wonder worker performed 4 miracles before me." And you can feel the gravity in his voice. This isn't a casual anecdote. This is a warning dressed up as a story.
Chapter 18, A Mohammedan Wonder Worker. And the story starts not with power or spectacle, but with something much simpler: water. A young boy named Afzal Khan, somewhere in eastern Bengal, living in a time when the divisions between Hindu and Muslim are absolute, like walls made of iron that nobody crosses. A dust-covered sannyasi shows up, a wandering yogi in ochre robes, and asks for a drink.
And Afzal looks at him and says, "Master, I am a Mohammedan. How could you, a Hindu, accept a drink from my hands?" He's young, but he's already absorbed the world's teaching about separation. It's automatic. It's what he believes reality is, you know?
And the sannyasi doesn't correct him with doctrine, doesn't argue theology. He simply says, "Your truthfulness pleases me, my child. I do not observe the ostracizing rules of ungodly sectarianism. Go, bring me water quickly." He's showing unity, not explaining it. He's living across the boundary that Afzal thought was permanent. And when Afzal brings the water, the exchange deepens. The guru gives Afzal a gift, not money or material goods, a yoga technique, a specific practice that grants what the text calls command over one of the invisible realms.
But here's the crucial part. The guru is speaking directly into Afzal's future, into karma he doesn't yet understand. He says, "The great power should be exercised for worthy ends. Never employ them selfishly. I perceive, alas, that you have brought over from the past some seeds of destructive tendencies. Do not allow them to sprout."
Seeds from past lives, reincarnation. The guru sees something in Afzal's soul, seeds of greed, of selfishness, of the misuse of power, seeds that have been planted in previous lifetimes and are waiting for the right conditions to grow. He's not just teaching a technique, he's warning. I see your potential for power, but I also see your potential for corruption. Choose carefully.
And did Afzal listen?
Not the way the guru hoped. He followed the exercise, 20 years of disciplined, dedicated practice, and the power grew. It wasn't slow or theoretical, it was real and tangible and increasingly terrifying. He gained a companion, a disembodied spirit called Hazrat, a being from the subtle astral realms who could be summoned by name. And through Hazrat, Afzal could fulfill his wishes almost instantly. Objects would vanish when he commanded it. Gems would disappear from jewelry stores. Train tickets would vanish from station offices. He could make anything materialize and dematerialize at will. And remember, Yogananda's own father later told him that his company, the Bengal Nagpur Railway, had been one of the firms victimized by Afzal Khan. This wasn't legend. It was real enough to show up in corporate accounting records. But he was using this extraordinary power to steal. Not one incident or one lapse of judgment, a 20-year pattern. Bengali jewelers were having nervous breakdowns from repeated losses. Merchants and ticket sellers couldn't figure out where the theft was coming from. The police were helpless. What do you arrest? How do you charge someone when the evidence vanishes before your eyes? He'd whisper to Hazrat, and whatever he wanted would be gone. And here's the paradox that should break your heart. He had access to invisible realms of manifestation. He could materialize objects from thin air. He could communicate with beings from dimensions most humans never access until death. And he was using it to steal train tickets and jewelry. I mean, think about that. It's like having the key to the universe and using it to pick pockets. It's not wisdom. It's just raw power without the character to know what it's for.
And it went on for years, decades. The power grew and the ego grew with it. His sense of himself as someone special, someone above ordinary law, someone with abilities that put him beyond consequence. And that ego became the real trap, not the power itself. The power was neutral. It was a tool, like any tool, but in the hands of someone whose seeds of greed had sprouted exactly as the guru predicted, it became a weapon aimed at the innocent, the jewelers, the merchants, the travelers, people who had no defense against something they couldn't even see.
And nobody could stop him. That's the terrifying part. You can't arrest what you can't detect. You can't prosecute someone whose evidence vanishes into another dimension. The only person who could hold Afzal accountable was the one who gave him the power in the first place. And that guru was waiting, watching, giving Afzal decades to choose differently, decades of patience before the reckoning.
Sri Yukteswar witnessed all of this firsthand. He was a youth then, before his own mastery was complete. About 20 people gathered at the Panthi house for Afzal's display of power. Sri Yukteswar was there, observing, and he was smart enough not to wear any valuables. He wasn't going to give Afzal a target.
And Afzal looks at him and says, "You have powerful hands. Go downstairs to the garden, get a smooth stone and write your name on it with chalk, then throw the stone as far as possible into the Ganges." So Sri Yukteswar does it, finds a stone, writes his name, throws it as far as he can into the river. Gone, lost in currents that would carry it miles downstream, completely unrecoverable.
And then Afzal cries out, "Hazrat, put the stone in the pot." And the stone appears, physically materializes in a vessel of Ganges water sitting right there in front of everyone. Sri Yukteswar's name is still legible on the surface, clear as day. The same stone, recovered from the bottom of the Ganges, transported through dimensions, deposited in a cooking pot, in the time it takes to speak a sentence. The river, the distance, the physical laws that should prevent any of this, none of it matters to the force that Afzal commands.
And that's just the first miracle. There are 3 more. A friend of Sri Yukteswar's, a man the text calls Babu, hands over his gold watch and chain for Afzal to examine. Beautiful antique pieces, clearly valuable, probably a family treasure with history and sentimental weight. Afzal turns them over, studying every detail. And then he concentrates, closes his eyes, and the watch vanishes. Just disappears from physical existence. Gone from the room, gone from the world as far as anyone can tell.
And Babu is nearly in tears. He's lost something precious, something irreplaceable. But Afzal is completely calm. He opens his eyes and says, matter-of-factly, "That will be 500 rupees. Like it's a transaction, like he's a merchant and Babu owes him a debt. He's demonstrating power and extracting payment in the same gesture. It's brilliant in a terrible way.
Babu pays. What choice does he have? 500 rupees is a lot of money, but that watch is irreplaceable. And then Afzal tells him, "Go to the little bridge near your house, call on Hazrat to give you the watch and chain." So Babu goes to the bridge, calls out the name, and the watch and chain come tumbling from the air into his hands, materializing from nowhere, from some dimension where they've been stored, held in suspension by a being that exists outside physical reality. And it keeps escalating. Drinks materialize next. Milk, fruit juices for the gathered people, even whiskey for the unnerved Babu, because Afzal reads everyone perfectly. He understands exactly what would soothe each person, what would prove the power is real. Every time he makes something materialize, he's also proving he can make it disappear. He's got absolute control. He's the arbiter of physical reality in that space.
And then he says he'll provide an instantaneous lunch. Not just food, on gold plates, real gold. Babu, still smarting from paying 500 rupees for his own watch, says, "I want an elaborate meal for my money," testing whether the power is genuine. And the food appears, on actual gold plates. They eat it, it's real, substantial, it satisfies hunger. The gold is solid to the touch, they can feel it, weigh it, verify it.
But when they start to leave, there's this tremendous noise, this eruption of sound, and all the gold plates and every remnant of food vanish, gone, like it never existed, back to wherever it came from. And Yogananda asks Sri Yukteswar the obvious question. If Afzal could materialize gold plates, why covet others' property? If he could manifest anything, why steal?
That's the central paradox, and Sri Yukteswar's answer is the key to the whole chapter. He explains that Afzal's objects were structurally evanescent. They couldn't be long retained. They were made of astral substance, real in the subtle realm, absolutely real, but when pulled into the physical world, they degraded. They couldn't maintain their structure in this denser dimension, like trying to keep ice in the heat. The molecular cohesion just can't hold.
And that's why the gold plates vanished. They were real gold in the astral dimension, but in the physical world, they were temporary. The atoms were held together by will and consciousness, but once Afzal's attention moved on, the structure collapsed. And this is where Sri Yukteswar draws the critical distinction. Miracles performed by saints who have attuned themselves to the omnipotent creator are permanent and beneficial. They're rooted in God, in unity consciousness. But Afzal's manifestations were temporary because they were rooted in ego, not in divine alignment.
So the difference between a saint's miracle and a magician's trick isn't the scale of the power, it's the source. The saint works through God. The magician works through personal will and technique. The saints' creations endure because they're aligned with reality itself, with the fundamental consciousness that underlies everything. The magician's creations dissolve because they're built on ego, which is finite. It's like the difference between a house built on rock and a house built on sand. The sand house might look impressive for a while, but it can't last.
And that's why Afzal needed to steal. Even though he could manifest gold plates and produce food from nothing, he couldn't keep any of it. The astral creations were temporary, they'd dissolve back into the ether. So to actually possess things permanently, to accumulate wealth, he had to take real objects from real people. The irony is devastating. He had more power than almost anyone alive, and he was still a slave to desire, still desperate to possess and accumulate. The power didn't free him, it deepened his bondage.
That's actually the clearest illustration of what happens when power grows faster than wisdom. You get more and more ability to do things, but you don't get any better at knowing what to do. And eventually, the gap between your power and your wisdom becomes the thing that destroys you.
And the reckoning comes. Years pass, decades of theft and manipulation. And then one day, Afzal is walking on a road outside Calcutta. He meets an old, crippled man carrying a ball of gold, and his greed flares up automatically. Decades of habit. The old man asks for healing, a direct plea, "Can you heal me?" And Afzal, instead of helping, touches the ball of gold and walks away with it. He ignores the plea for help and steals from a crippled beggar.
And then the voice changes. The old man's frail voice becomes strong, stentorian, echoing. "Do you not recognize me?" And Afzal looks again. The old man is straightening. His spine becomes erect. His face transforms. Youth returns to his body. It's the same sannyasi, the one from 50 years ago, the one who gave Afzal the technique in the first place, the one who warned him about his destructive seeds.
And the sannyasi says, "So, I see with my own eyes that you use your powers not to help suffering humanity, but to prey on it like a common thief. I withdraw your occult gifts. Hazrat is now freed from you. No longer shall you be a terror in Bengal."
Afzal calls on Hazrat. For the first time in 20 years, nothing happens. No response. Silence. A dark veil lifts from his consciousness, and he sees his life clearly. He sees what he's done, the theft, the terror, the jewelers with their breakdowns, the people he's preyed on. He sees the whole trajectory, and he sobs. He breaks completely.
And Afzal promises to retire to the mountains, to spend the rest of his life in lonely meditation on God. And here's where the Guru's compassion reveals itself. Because even after everything, even after 50 years of watching Afzal corrupt a sacred gift, the sannyasi shows mercy. Not softness, but mercy. Hazrat is freed from slavery to Afzal, released from the binding that held the spirit captive to one man's greed. But Hazrat will still supply Afzal with food and clothing when needed in the mountain solitudes. He won't be abandoned. He won't starve. He's been stripped of power, but he hasn't been stripped of care.
And that's the redemption. He's freed from the gifts that were also chains. The power that was feeding his ego is gone. And what's left is what was always there underneath, the original practice, the yoga technique, the path to God, the same path he started on before the power seduced him away from it. He gets to start over, but this time without the distraction of supernatural abilities.
You know what's quiet underneath the whole narrative? Something easy to miss? The sannyasi who initiated Afzal was a Hindu. Afzal is Muslim. There's no division between them. The teaching flows freely across the boundary that the world says is impassable. The technique works the same. The truth is the same. The power is the same. The redemption is available to anyone. All genuine paths lead to the same source.
Yeah, that matters enormously. It's saying that God doesn't have a religion, that enlightenment isn't sectarian, that the yoga technique works on the Muslim just as it works on the Hindu. The sannyasi crossed that boundary in the very first moment when he said, "I do not observe the ostracizing rules of ungodly sectarianism." He's been living that truth for 50 years, long enough to come back and hold Afzal accountable for his misuse of a gift that transcended religion in the first place. And I think the most important thing about this whole story is the warning at the beginning. "I perceive you have brought over from the past some seeds of destructive tendencies. Do not allow them to sprout." The Guru saw it from the start. Before giving Afzal the technique, he named the danger. He saw the karmic pattern. He offered the warning alongside the gift. But he still gave the gift. He didn't withhold the teaching out of fear. He trusted Afzal with the choice. And Afzal chose wrong. For 50 years, he chose wrong.
But even after 50 years of wrong choices, the guru came back and offered redemption.
That's the deepest thing in this chapter for me. The guru's patience. 50 years of watching a student misuse a sacred gift, and he still comes back. He still offers a path forward. He doesn't abandon Afzal. He doesn't write him off. He strips the power, yes. He holds him accountable, absolutely. But he also provides for him in the mountains. He gives him a way back to God. Because the guru's love doesn't expire. It doesn't run out after a certain number of failures. It's unconditional in the truest sense.
And that's the redemption. He's freed from the gifts that were also chains. The power that was feeding his ego is gone. And what's left is what was always there underneath, the original practice, the yoga technique, the path to God, the same path he started on before the power seduced him away from it. He gets to start over, but this time without the distraction of supernatural abilities.
You know what's quiet underneath the whole narrative? Something easy to miss? The sannyasi who initiated Afzal was a Hindu. Afzal is Muslim. There's no division between them. The teaching flows freely across the boundary that the world says is impassable. The technique works the same. The truth is the same. The power is the same. The redemption is available to anyone. All genuine paths lead to the same source.
Yeah, that matters enormously. It's saying that God doesn't have a religion, that enlightenment isn't sectarian, that the yoga technique works on the Muslim just as it works on the Hindu. The sannyasi crossed that boundary in the very first moment when he said, "I do not observe the ostracizing rules of ungodly sectarianism." He's been living that truth for 50 years, long enough to come back and hold Afzal accountable for his misuse of a gift that transcended religion in the first place. And I think the most important thing about this whole story is the warning at the beginning. "I perceive you have brought over from the past some seeds of destructive tendencies. Do not allow them to sprout." The guru saw it from the start. Before giving Afzal the technique, he named the danger. He saw the pattern. He offered the warning alongside the gift. But he still gave the gift. He didn't withhold the teaching out of fear. He trusted Afzal with the choice. And Afzal chose wrong. For 50 years, he chose wrong. But even after 50 years of wrong choices, the guru came back and offered redemption.
That's the deepest thing in this chapter for me. The guru's patience. 50 years of watching a student misuse a sacred gift. And he still comes back. He still offers a path forward. He doesn't abandon Afzal. He doesn't write him off. He strips the power, yes. He holds him accountable, absolutely. But he also provides for him in the mountains. He gives him a way back to God. Because the guru's love doesn't expire. It doesn't run out after a certain number of failures. It's unconditional in the truest sense.
And next time, Sri Yukteswar himself is going to demonstrate something even more remarkable. He's going to appear in 2 places at once. Bilocation, his physical body materializing in a room in Serampore while his other body is on a train from Calcutta. Not power used selfishly like Afzal. Power serving only truth. Power that proves the guru's consciousness operates beyond the body. That sounds like the exact opposite of everything Afzal represented. Power in service of love rather than greed.
It is, and that's exactly why these chapters sit next to each other. Power corrupted by ego, and then power perfected through surrender to God. Afzal used his gift to steal from people. Sri Yukteswar uses his consciousness to serve his disciples, to appear where he's needed, to communicate across distance when words and letters fail. The contrast teaches more than either story could on its own.
And it also raises the question we should all be asking ourselves. Not whether we have power, because we all have some kind of influence or ability, but what we're doing with it. Whether we're using it to serve something larger than ourselves or just feeding our own appetites. That's what the guru warned Afzal about from the start. And it's what every person has to figure out with whatever gifts they've been given.
That's the question this whole book keeps asking, in different ways, chapter after chapter. What will you do with what you've been given? See you next time.